Hello, and welcome back to Caffè Fibonacci. I'm Rufus.
And I'm Tim.
What are we going to do today?
Today we're going to get interactive. We're going to be using InDesign's interactive PDF features to create interactive PDF out of a marketing brochure.
Cool. So let's just start by showing you what we have prepared. We have an InDesign document that will hold a movie and some buttons that you will create, Tim. Let's go back to Bridge and show you what movie we have that we want to place inside of InDesign. And the cool thing about Bridge is that when I click on a movie, I can actually see the preview in the preview pane, and I can listen to the audio and look at the images. And if we look at that movie, I'm pressing the play button now, we also note that it has text on it, it has images, and one thing that I note also is that it goes from the widescreen to another type of ratio of the screen. So I would like to correct that. And plus, I would like to customize this video a little bit by putting maybe the company logo and some writing on it. So what do I need to do? Do I need to go to After Effects or Premiere?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, because we're designers, right? So, print designers, because there's designers that do web as well. Mm-hmm. But we have Creative Suite 3 Design Premium, and that also includes Photoshop CS3 Extended. And one of the features in Photoshop 3 Extended, which is really cool, is that we can actually work on video. So the first thing I'm going to do today is take that video and open it with Photoshop CS3 Extended. Let's just open the video. And this is really cool. We actually see the first frame of the movie. So what? So can I start working on that? There's one thing missing. And that is the window, animation window. And this is so cool because in that animation window, I'm going to make larger here, we can actually access the whole movie and scrub it and look at what's happening. Okay? So we can consider this just like a Photoshop file now, and we can add layers to it. For example, I'm going to add the black bars to the whole movie so we don't get that change of ratio inside of the movie. So let's just do that. I'm going to make a new layer on my movie file. And what I'm going to do is just select this area up here just to make it slightly bigger, and then Shift Select to select another area. And I'm just going to go fill that with a black color. Black. Okay. So now, throughout the whole movie, and let me just deselect that, we actually have the bars that never change. Remember, here it changed before, and now it doesn't anymore. Okay? The next thing I want to do is to add the Stubbs logo on it. So we actually customize the video.
This would be the customer logo.
The customer logo, yeah. So let's go back to Bridge, and let's open a file that actually holds the logo, like this PSD right here. And what I'm going to do is simply select the logo here and drag it over to my movie file. And this comes to a new layer, which I can then place. I can also edit, free transform, and make it smaller, and put it right up here. Okay? And this is like a new layer now inside of my Photoshop document. I can also add text. For example, what I can do is go back to the InDesign document and take the URL for the website, copy that, and go back to Photoshop and create a text frame right here, and paste. And maybe let's make that slightly bigger so we can see it on the video. And select it again and make it slightly smaller and place it exactly the way we want on our movie, because this is what we're doing. We're placing this on a movie.
So those items that you've placed in there will persist from frame to frame.
Exactly.
Unless you put another effect on them.
Exactly. For example, what I could do also is take this logo and make it move slightly to make it a bit more interesting. So let's just look at the animation panel for a second. Let me resize all this. And let's go into the Stubbs logo. And what we can see here, I'm going to zoom in here for a second, is that we can actually work on position, opacity, and style of that specific layer. And what I'm going to do is work on the position. Let's just select the logo. I need to press the little stopwatch to insert a keyframe, which is right here now. And then I can move my cursor maybe over here and move the logo to its new position. And as you can see, Photoshop automatically inserts a new keyframe. And if I scrub this now, we can see the logo actually moving. Okay? And then maybe we add another keyframe here, just by moving the logo back into its original position. Something like that. And then we can leave it hanging there. Another thing we could do also, and this we're going to do that on the stubbsisland.com URL, is that I'm going to change the opacity of it. Let's start with the opacity right at the beginning of the movie, 100%. Let's move in the timeline here to go somewhere like here and change the opacity to 0. So it's actually disappearing. And I can animate that. And as you can see, the logo is here, and now it disappears. And maybe towards the end of the movie, what I can do is add a new keyframe. Something like that, okay? And then move it over here and set the opacity to 100. Okay, so what we have now is a text that appears and disappears. Okay, is that cool? Mm-hmm. Right, and now that I've done all these changes, I'm ready to save the movie back to its original format. To do that, I simply go to File, Export, Render Video. And by doing that, I'm going to create a movie. I can also select QuickTime export settings, the image sequence. I can also choose to only have a range of frames. I'm just going to simply export the whole movie. Mm-hmm. So let's do that, a QuickTime movie, and put it on the desktop. And choose and render. So now what we're going to do is go back to Bridge, go on the desktop, and look what happened to the movie. If I look at the preview, we can now see that there's a logo up there, that the text is moving, the URL is disappearing, and the logo is moving as well. And now what I do is take this movie and take it into InDesign and let it go and simply place it on my page just as any other type of graphic. And let's put it right here into position. And if I double-click on the movie, I can actually change its properties. For example, I can add description to the movie, or I can choose another file. In this case, I also want to embed the movie in the PDF, because that's a trick. We're going to create a PDF, a self-contained PDF, with the movie inside, and so that the users, when they look at it, they actually also see the movie and don't have to download further. I could also specify URL for a movie. So we could have a PDF that links to a movie that's on some web server, and maybe the movie changes like every day, and every day the user opens the PDF, the movie could be different. But in our case,
that would be a good choice for content that is going to be changing on a regular basis, and you're essentially creating an interactive PDF that's a shell for this content that they're going to want to view later at different times and get the latest information.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And then we have these options here. We have the poster options, and the poster options are mainly how do we want this movie to appear on our InDesign document. Mm-hmm. And there we can choose to have the default poster, which is the first frame of the movie, or we can choose a movie frame as a poster, and this window opens, and we can scrub the movie until we actually find the frame that we like to use inside of our InDesign document. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that I want to do is to create a document that will also print at a good quality. Mm-hmm. This movie here is 72 dpi, and I would like to be able to print at least 150 on a good laser printer. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do is choose another image as a poster. And I just have that inside of Bridge, which is a picture that's 150 dpi, the same size, and this is a TIFF.
Okay, so it's a higher res image that's far more suited for printing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to choose this image. And there I can also choose things like play the movie as soon as the page turns. Show the controller of the movie while the movie is playing. You know, it's like the play button, the pause button, and the volume buttons. Mm-hmm. Or have it in a floating window. In this case, we're not going to have it in a floating window because this position is just fine. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then we can also, if we choose floating window, we can choose the size and the position of the floating window inside of our document. And we're just going to say OK. And at that point, we have the image for the placeholder, and the movie is ready. Now what we would need here, Tim, is two buttons, one for playing the movie and one for hiding the movie.
So I've been working on a couple of buttons for Rufus here on my machine. And the first thing I'm going to do is show you a rather obscure little item on the toolbar that a lot of people either don't know what it is or they don't even know it's there, but it's this little tool here called the button tool. Now I'm going to do something outrageous and suggest that you never ever actually use this tool. You don't need to use this tool, and it's actually kind of inefficient to use this tool. What I'm going to recommend is a different way of working, which is what I'm going to show you here. If you do select the button tool, you can drag out button objects and then fill them with content for your buttons, but don't do it that way. Here's a better way to do it. What I'm starting out with here is just simply 2 text frames because our buttons need to have some text in them. One that says play movie, one that says hide movie. So I've created my objects already, my text objects, and what I'm going to do now that I have them created is use a contextual menu here. Again, control-click or right-click to get the contextual menu. Go down to the interactive option here and choose Convert to Button. This is what you want to do instead of using the button tool. It's a lot more convenient. You and I have probably worked both ways, and we've seen that, it's much easier to take an existing object and convert it to a button than to draw a button tool and start copying and pasting items inside the button tool. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to convert these 2 to buttons, and you can see now that the appearance changes here. So I'm going to slide up this button container a little bit so we can see the actual active part of the button inside. But be aware, though, whatever size this button object is, that is the live or active area in your interactive PDF. So it's within. You can make this as big or as small as you want, but I just made it a little bit larger here so we can see what we're doing. So what we want here is Rufus is ultimately going to need 2 button states. You're going to need an up state and a down state, or no, not a down state, a rollover state.
A rollover state.
Yeah, we don't want a down state. We're just going to do up and rollover. So there's a nice little palette over here called the States palette. And this is where you create the button states for button objects in InDesign. I'm going to select one of these here, one of these buttons, and create a new state. By default, it has an up state. Now I'm going to create a rollover state, and I'm going to do that with the other button as well. So now both of them have 2 states that I need to now define. So that's what we're going to do now. But it's important that people understand how the subtle mechanics of how this works, because if you don't understand it, it can be frustrating and you're going to make mistakes. And this is where button work, hardcore button work, can bite you.
Yes.
Okay? So it's very important that you maintain the distinction between the button object and the content that lives inside the button. I can format them both. I can put a stroke or a fill around the larger button object and a separate effect or look on the button content. In this case, in this example, we're just going to be playing with the button content. We're going to create different visual looks for the up state and the rollover state. So the first thing I'm going to do is select this first button and notice that the up state is selected. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the content inside the button. And I could do that one of 2 ways. I could either use the direct select tool like that, or I can use the select content button up on the control panel up here. These little buttons up here enable you to dive into frames that have nested content inside them and navigate through that nested content. And it's kind of a nice, clean, and tidy way to work here. So I'm going to dive in there. Noticing again I have my up state selected. I dive in, and now I've got the content for the up state selected. And over here in my object styles palette, I have 2 object styles, one for the button up state and one for the rollover state. I'm going to apply the button up state object style there, and it formats the button content the way that I want it to for that state. Now I move back up into selection, select the button object, and I move to the rollover state for that object. Dive back down in, select the content, and choose the rollover state object style. So now I have both an up state and a rollover state. And a good way to test what your button's going to look like when it's in the interactive PDF is just to toggle, click on those 2 states, and you'll see the button change appearance.
Cool.
Right? So I'm going to do the same thing now for the other button. Select the button object. I've got the up state selected. Dive in, select my button up state object style. Move back up, select my rollover state, dive back in, and choose the rollover state object style. So now I've got these 2 buttons formatted and ready to go. I'm going to pass them back to Rufus as an InDesign snippet. He can just drag and drop that snippet into his layout, and then once those buttons are back in the layout, Rufus is going to assign the actual actions that these buttons are going to have in the interactive PDF.
Yes, thank you. A snippet will be cool.
Okay. So I've got the 2 buttons selected. I open up InDesign's Export dialog box, and notice I have InDesign Snippet selected here, and I can give this a name. The default name I've got right now is just buttons.inds, and I just select Save. And these have now been described in XML, and I'm going to hand those off to you so that you can drag and drop or import these, place these into your InDesign document.
Also, you could instead of exporting them as a snippet, you could also drag and drop these elements right onto your desktop, and the snippet would be automatically created.
Nice thing about snippets is they go anywhere. I could send these as email attachments to Rufus. If he wasn't sitting right next to me, I could put these in an email as an attachment, and he could just drag and drop the attachment directly from his email application into InDesign, and his buttons would appear.
Exactly. So what I'm going to do now is go back to Bridge, and in our folder here, Caffè Fibonacci, I have Tim's snippet here, buttons, INDS. And I even see the preview in my preview pane. And all I need to do now is to take these buttons, start dragging them over, go back to InDesign, and let go. Select them both, and place them. Now we have the two buttons that we need to play the movie and hide the movie. Let's zoom in here a second. What I'm going to do now is double-click simply on the button, and then I will be able to change its name, for example. I could remove the number that's been put in. I can choose whether the button is visible in the PDF or not. And what I like to do is to say visible but doesn't print, because buttons have no sense of living inside of a print document, right?
Well, they lose their interactivity when you
absolutely.
Commit them to
So
paper, yes.
you know, if I printed a piece of paper, there is no way I can press the button.
Well, you could press the button; it would just be a lackluster experience.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So my preferred choice is always visible but does not print. Okay. And then I can add behaviors. For example, I can add events. Choose from events. For example, on mouse up, mouse down, mouse enter, mouse exit. That's to choose when should the event happen. Okay? When I click on
what triggers the event?
What triggers the event? Yeah. There you go. Okay, if the mouse is up or the mouse is down. So if I click, the movie would play. But with mouse up, if I click and let go, then the movie would play. This is my preferred event, mouse up, because how many times do you click on a button and then choose to do otherwise, not to let it go?
Okay, you have a sudden change of heart, and
exactly.
you want to back out before
and you don't want to see
happens.
the movie. Exactly. On mouse enter and mouse exit is really nasty. This would simply mean that just by passing on top of it, it would trigger something.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't want a movie to play, but maybe you might want to trigger something else, like the visibility of some other object or something else on the page. The point is you do have all those options to, all those events can trigger different events within your interactive PDF.
On focus and on blur is when the page comes and when the page leaves. Okay? And what I want to do here is actually add two behaviors. One is to show the hide button, which is not going to be there while the movie is not playing. Okay? So what I'm going to say is say behavior, show hide fields, and it'll list my buttons here. Okay? Actually, let's just go back very quickly and make sure that these names are saved. So I'm just going to say OK, and in hide, I'm just going to open the button, call it hide without this, and make that just invisible, hidden. It'll still show on our screen while we work on it. So it's
but
not
what
like
that hidden means that when the PDF is open, that button is hidden by default until some other action triggers it and makes it active.
Yes. So let's work on the play button again. Behaviors, on mouse up, show hide fields, and what I want to show is the hide button. Okay? And by clicking on here, I activate the little eye. Okay? One very important thing is do not click OK even though it's blinking here, because it will not be saved. What you need to do is add the behavior and the event to this pane over here. And then we want another action as well. We want to play the movie. So we're going to say movie. What movie? There could be more movies inside of the PDF. In this case, we only have Age of Wales.
So any movie, any other movies that you had placed on in this document would show up there in that drop-down list.
Exactly. Okay. And what we want to do is just to play the movie. And again, we need to add this event and behavior over here and say OK. This button now has actions applied to it. Let's work on the hide button. The hide button, when clicked, needs to hide again. Hide the movie and hide itself. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do on mouse up, behavior, movie, stop. Okay? So it comes back to the image we've chosen as a placeholder. And we're going to add this action and another action we need. So let's just add that we want to hide the field hide. And if I need to click twice on here, and let me zoom in, because it's important that we have this little bar over the eye, because this is what's going to trigger the hiding of that button. And we're going to add this action here as well. So we have one event and two behaviors, just like the first button. Let's say OK. And another thing I want to point out on this document is that we have a URL for the marketing brochure. And I didn't create a hyperlink inside of InDesign, okay? Because I know that Acrobat picks hyperlinks up automatically, you know, the www dot.
So if it's formatted like a standard URL, then when InDesign exports that into PDF, it's automatically going to be a live hyperlink. We don't need to create a button effect for it.
Exactly. What I'm going to do now is export that InDesign document in PDF. So File, Export, and in the next window, I'll have to choose the name of the document, Telegraph Cove Interactive PDF, that sounds good, Save, and then choose from presets. Let's say this PDF we actually want people to download to look at the movie, but also to print on a good laser printer. Okay? So what we're going to choose is high quality print. Okay? But we have to be very careful here, because we also need to check the compatibility with the PDF format. Okay? And in Acrobat 5, it was not yet possible to embed movies inside of a PDF. They had to be linked. In Acrobat 6 and upwards, the movies can actually be embedded inside of the PDF. Okay? So let's choose Acrobat 7, so we're pretty sure that anybody will be able to open them. And then we can also choose the range of pages. But the thing that really interests us right now is the fact that we have to include interactive elements. And interactive elements are the movie and the buttons.
And there's one other thing we need to include there as well.
Which is?
Hyperlinks.
No, we don't. Because
tell me why.
Acrobat makes them automatically.
Right, that hyperlinks checkbox refers to
hyperlinks you
the
create
hyperlinks feature in InDesign.
Yes.
So if you haven't created using the hyperlinks feature, you don't need to check that. Simple spelled out URLs will automatically convert.
Exactly. And I'm going to export that. Okay? And we see that we have our placeholder image here. And I could actually click on that and play the movie. But we also have the button. And note how the interactivity works. I'm just passing over the button, and we have the rollover effect that you created. And it created a snippet for me, and I just included it inside of my document. And when I click that button, what will happen is that the first time I do that, Acrobat will actually ask me, are you sure you want to play that content? It could have some malicious content, or there could be some kind of a virus in there. Do you know the person this PDF comes from? And then I just say, yes, I know. I did it. So I know myself. I just say, I'm going to play the movie. And here we go. We have the movie with the animated logo, with the URL that has disappeared, with our black boxes that we created inside of Photoshop, the buttons, which are still interactive, and at whatever time I press the Hide Movie button, the movie will stop, the button will disappear, and we will go back to the placeholder image. Is that cool?
That's really great. Basically, InDesign is a great tool not just for producing content for print, but also leveraging the ubiquitous PDF file format to creating interactive documents for whether it's marketing purposes or fun or whatever else. But we would encourage you to really explore the buttons, the hyperlinks, the interactive PDF features, so you can start producing these rich documents using InDesign as a design tool, but then dumping them into PDF and not having to do any rework in Acrobat.
And you can also include flash animations. You can include sounds, such as music or voiceovers. I mean, the only limit is your imagination.
So thank you for visiting us here at Caffè Fibonacci. Until next time, we will say ciao.
Ciao.